Today I'm going to be talking about things to look for on the 1993 through 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokees. I'm going to list some of the common issues with these cars, and I'm going to start it off by talking about the engine. So one of the first things to look for if you're going to buy one of these cars is to look if it has any oil leaks, specifically the rear main seal. If you see a lot of oil like this particular car, so there's a lot of oil here. I'm not sure if it's coming from the oil pan, because this car does not have any leaks of oil. So if you can see right here, the oil pan is very clean, so I'm assuming most of this oil is coming from the transmission pan. You have to really ask the person that you're buying the car from whether or not the car leaks oil, because you're gonna have a lot of problems trying to refill it. It could even have some issues with running your engine out of oil. Moving on to the engine side, you have to make sure that there's not a lot of oil leaks from the valve covers. So it is very common on these to have oil leaks coming from the valve covers, which can get into your spark plugs and cause other issues there. I already went ahead and replaced the valve covers on this Jeep, but out of all the ZJs I've owned, I've always had to replace the valve cover gaskets. There should be no oil here. If there is, it's not that hard of a job to do. So I recommend doing that as one of the first things if you do get a car that has a leaky valve cover gaskets, leaky valve covers. Now, another thing about these ZJs, Grand Cherokees, is that the cooling system on these is really good when it is properly maintained, but it can cause you a lot of issues if it is not. Things to look out for are stuck thermostats. So if you have a thermostat that is bad, you could have a lot of engine heating, and your water pump. So if there's any leaking from the water pumps, that could also lead to overheating issues, and they tend to go out a lot. You have your water pump here. It is kind of a big job to replace if you have a bad water pump. The parts itself are not expensive on these cars, being that they're American. What you are going to be looking at in terms of labor is going to be your most expensive thing. There's a couple of points on the water pumps that fail. Usually it's right under. So there's a bolt under here, and that's where it usually leaks. It can also leak from this ring right here. There's an O-ring there, and from this coolant hose coming from the top. So another thing about these cars, the radiator is prone to have cracks in it because they have a plastic frame on them. So I would suggest to upgrade your radiator to all aluminum. I've had this little piece break on me here because it's plastic. This little reservoir hose outlet, I've had it break on me, and repairing these is kind of hard. One more thing before we move on to the transmission parts, you want to make sure that your belt, your serpentine belt, is new, because on more than one occasion on my other ZJs, I've had this rip on me as I'm driving. This operates your water pump. So if your water pump is not running, you're gonna have engine overheating more than likely. And other than that, it can create a mess here if like it gets wrapped around other things. It'll mess up your heat cover. So you can see right here, this is from a snapped serpentine belt. So it snapped and it hit this. This is not bad though. I had another one that completely ruined the whole top here. Okay, moving on to the transmission and 4x4 side of things. Here's a way to tell what kind of transfer case you have. All you have to do is look at the top number right here. So that number 249J, so that is the type of transfer case that you have, and below it 272, that is your gear ratio. What this means is that this is the all-wheel drive full-time system, quadra-track. You want to make sure that you maintain these and you change the oil on them. Here's your fill plug, and then your drain plug is right here. Cool thing about these ZJs is they come with a plate down here, a skid plate to protect the transfer case. And moving on, you also want to check your differentials, your differential fluid, make sure that it's topped off. A lot of these go bad just based on user error. A lot of people don't know how to switch from, you know, four-wheel drive high to low, and just ruin their differentials, their transfer cases. There's a specific way to do it. So I talked a little bit about the engine and the transmission and the four-wheel drive system. There's a lot more things to look for. I'm just going over a couple of major flaws on these cars that I've come to find out throughout the years. Now I want to talk about the interior on these. Overall, speaking of your dash and a lot of this center console area, all of this, it's usually really easy to maintain, and it's not that hard, or it's not as easy to crack or like show a lot of signs of wear. For the most part, you know, depending on how the car was maintained. The biggest thing on these is no matter how good you take care of it, on the leather seats there is always some sort of rips on them. I'm not sure if it's because of the leather they use on these or what happens, but you are likely to see a big tear right down the middle of this. You know, basically on the seams, you could have those on this, you could have this be pulling up. Back seats, you might not see that as much because they are not like in direct exposure to the sun. So when the sun hits this, or like they're not as used as much as the front seats. The door panels on these also very sturdy. They stand the test of time really good. I've never seen any big issues with these, but like any other car, sunlight is your worst enemy. This one does have a little bit of fade here because it did not have tints. I put the tints on this, and before it was just exposed to the sun, so there's a little discoloration here. But yeah, like I said, the seats, they're prone, on the leather seats, they're prone to rips just anywhere you can imagine. Another problem is the speaker system on these Grand Cherokees of this generation. So these were equipped with an Infinity Gold sound system. With a built-in amp. The quality of these speakers are not very good. So here you can see it says Infinity Gold. I believe in the time that was a very high quality sound system, but these speakers just won't hold. On all of the CJs I've owned, they've been blown. On one of them, they were working and then they blew up. So that's another thing. This radio unit is also prone to failure. It gets a lot of heat from the engine bay. So yeah, sometimes it has problems with playing the CDs, or I don't know, a lot of little electrical gremlins can cause this to go out or not work properly. But yeah, on these speakers, expect them to not be working. So if you're looking at a good example of a ZJ and the speakers don't work, you know, I don't think that you should try to bargain too much with that. It's expected on these cars. Okay, the last thing I really want to touch on is the sunroof. I've heard a lot of stories about the sunroof leaking on these. For me, I've had 2 with sunroofs and both of them worked perfectly fine. But I have heard that the sunroof tends to leak, it tends to stop working. So I've heard that these sunroofs tend to leak. The rubber gaskets around are prone to failing and causing water to go in. I've been lucky that both of mine have not leaked, but that is another concern with these cars that have the sunroof option. Very quickly, I just want to explain how to engage 4-wheel drive low on these. So when your car is running, you put your foot on the brake, you shift to neutral, and then you can change your gear, your transfer case lever to 4 low. I think that you can also do it when it is in park, but it is recommended to have it in neutral. You can't do it on the fly. You want to make sure that you're in neutral, completely stopped to change it. There's also another way that I've seen is when you are rolling like at 1 mile per hour and then putting it on neutral and then changing it that way. On my older Grand Cherokee, it had the instructions right here on this part, and that's how I learned how to change it. Because if you are used to new cars that have this 4-wheel drive system to be able to be changed on the fly, then you're probably not used to the way these are done, you know. So just a quick thing to note. So overall, I really love these Grand Cherokees. They are really tanks when it comes to their engines, their transmissions, and their 4x4 systems. I wouldn't discourage anyone from getting one of these, but there are some maintenance things that need to be addressed. A lot of these are just not really taken care of. You're gonna expect to find a lot of issues. If you do get one, try to spend a little bit more. As of late, I've seen a lot of really great taken care of examples on Marketplace. So for about $5,000, you can get a good solid rig, and you know that you're gonna be getting a really great 4x4 system. So I think that back then, the systems for these were just much more quality than what you get now. They put a lot of time and attention and research into making sure that what you were getting was gonna be, you know, top tier 4x4 performance. If you do get a lower budget one, then just expect a lot of those issues I mentioned earlier to be present with these cars. I've seen these cars go up in popularity, and I think the styling is just looking better and better with time. Well, there you have it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video on what to look for on the 1993 through 98 Jeep Grand Cherokees. I wanted to make this to inform you and to let you know that these are really great rigs overall. Cool styling, great performance, and affordable. You know, if you want to do off-roading, if you want to just something reliable for the snow, these are the cars to go. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.